everybody, it's your girl, Pajama, with Pajama Life, and today is a great day to review movies. We have a great lineup. Unfortunately, our buddy David couldn't be with us today. He's a little under the weather, but of course, we have the man, the myth, the somewhat legend, Patrick. Say hey to the people.
Hey everybody, glad it could be here. Sorry, got my earbuds on, having some issues with technical difficulties today, and since I don't have the stellar producer that Pam has, I'm just working with what I got. So here we are. It's just me. So there we are. Glad to be here though.
All right, we have a great lineup. We are going to review Maestro as part of our Oscar Best Picture roundup, as well as our Black History Month pick for this week, The Mill, and for Lunar New Year, we have The Brother Soon, as well as one of my favorite Oscar categories, Best Writing, Best Original, and Best Adapted. So we have a full show today. Let's start it off with Maestro. Take it away.
Oh, it's 12.
No.
So how long do we have to do this for?
Oh, we need to build up a very strong connection. Are you itching to move?
No, I'm not.
Good.
Actually, at all. I might.
If summer doesn't sing in you, then nothing sings in you. And if nothing sings in you, then you can't make music.
Oh boy. Patrick, what'd you think of Maestro?
Well, beautiful looking.
Patrick, what'd you think of? Sorry.
But really felt self-indulgent. I mean, it just, I don't know. It just, something about it just felt a little bit, Bradley Cooper directing, starring, producing, and it just seemed
Writing.
It just seemed gratuitous, self-indulgent. In other words, I came up with it. Like I said, it was beautiful. The black and white sequences were amazing. The costume, I felt that the prosthetic was off-putting, I guess, a little bit, and if you don't know what prosthetic I'm talking about, look at Bradley Cooper, then look at the movie, and you'll go, oh yeah, that prosthetic. It just, I mean, parts of it when they went to, there was some really neat plot or visual devices where they switched from the older portions of it in the black and white to the newer ones in color. Is very Wizard of Oz. Just again, it felt very. It's been done before, I guess. And while this works as a really good visual device as to what period we were talking about, nobody was sympathetic in it, to be honest. I mean, everybody was self-serving and gratuitous with their own needs over. It didn't do much for me other than just make me feel sorry for people that are that famous. So there you go. But again, gorgeous looking movie.
I agree. What I was hoping for was a look into his art, into his music, how he created West Side Story, or some of the great American compositions he had, the composing, how he wrote, stuff about his art, all this stuff about his sexual orientation and his family life. I mean, come on now. She knew what she was getting into when you make that kind of bargain. And it just kind of was like, well, you know what it is. So, he was a extremely talented person and amazingly conflicted in his personal life because of the times. And so, but I thought they missed a great chance to talk about him as an artist. And really the composition part, it was so much on the personal, his loves and his this and that. I was just like, I don't care, get to the music. You and I are both musicians. And so, and have been in orchestras. And so I wanted to know what it was like to compose something, so it's just it was just a soap opera, and I was disappointed in the soapiness of it. So it hit a sour note for me. I thought that was clever. But so it's a meh. And as far as the visual of, I thought it was very like overused. I was kind of like, oh, and this year there's a lot of that, using black and white and then using color, and it's just not original. And so do something else. Do something else, so it's a interesting look at a complicated person. How about that? Could have been more interesting though. All right, that's Maestro. And I'm not sure why it's up for Best Picture, but I will say that this is the type of movie they've been picking every year so far. So over these past decade, you see this same theme popping up again and again and again and again. So I see why, but I don't think it was as worthy as Saltburn. That's for sure.
Well, I will say, just as bring up you wanted to see more about how they made the music. I mean, that's boring, watching someone write music down on the thing. And I think that would have been and visually, movies being a visual medium, and just how he figures out to figure this. I mean, they did a decent enough job with that, with Amadeus. And if you want to see a good movie on how to show a complicated individual and how they kind of made up music, Amadeus is a great example as far as the personal life is so intertwined with music. And you're right, they did not show how his personal life was intertwined with his music, other than it was just a vehicle for him to go from one relationship to another, right, or and her to continue to live the lifestyle she wanted or whatever. I mean, it was obviously it was transactional.
That he also had female lovers too. He wasn't just always with men, he was with men and women throughout their marriage. So it was a mess is what it was. So and I'm wondering, is Bradley Cooper trying to tell us something with this as well? I don't
not going to read too much. I'm not reading much into it, but it was like I thought it was a good looking movie, and I know you may felt that was a little bit self-indulgent. Also, I thought it was well done. It looked beautiful, and it was a great delineation between the past and the more recent present. So I thought that was not bad. Well, but I just felt it was.
I think I felt that focusing on this part of his life so much didn't allow us to really appreciate the musical genius that he was. And so that too is part of my issue with it. But people tell the story they want to tell. So that's the story he wanted to tell, but I want him to tell something else. So if you're listening, Bradley Cooper, tell something else next time. Okay. Next up is we're gonna do this for the Lunar New Year, which is The Brothers Soon on Netflix. Let's take a peek.
He hit me.
We don't hit family.
Because our family is head of the Jade Dragons.
So we're like criminals. You could have told me that.
We were trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
The family is under attack. Some new gang wants to take our place. It's time for my brother to step up.
Which brother are you? The killer or the dipshit?
Take action and end this.
I don't think we've ever hugged before.
You're probably gonna die, so might as well get one in before you go.
I loved it. I really like this series. I hope there's a second season. Of course, Michelle Yeoh was amazing as usual, playing a kind of unexpected, once you get to the end of it, a very unexpected kind of character. And I tell you what, they sure are making the Asian men in these movies fine as F. But it was a very fun story and really intriguing because it had some twists and turns I didn't expect. But it was a lot of fun. Something that is it is extremely violent. So you probably don't want to let your little ones watch it. But it's something fun for the Lunar New Year. It's something fun that you can watch and have a good time with and not have to take it too seriously. Pat, what did you think?
Well, I didn't like it as much as you did.
Ah, come on, man.
I mean, I like Michelle Yeoh, and I'll watch her in an insurance commercial, to be honest. But this felt like a rehash of Rush Hour. Ooh, look, we have
no way.
Yeah,
where did you get Rush Hour out of that story?
You had the incompetent one who kind of didn't know anything. You had one guy who was a super good fighter. One's serious and funny. There was some interesting little twists, like the.
Well, don't tell it.
Well, I'm not telling. One of the brothers was the one who's the bigger fighter because the Jackie Chan version. He wanted to learn how to cook, and there was a lot of cooking little things. It was interesting. That was kind of fun. That really made him mad when someone messed up the thing.
Did you see the whole thing?
No, I did not. I couldn't watch the whole thing. I didn't have 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever it was this week of free time to watch the dang thing. I got through 3 hours of it.
But there is a scene from it where they're watching the movie Jim Cotta. I don't know if you remember that from the 80s. It was Kurt Connors, the gymnast in the Olympian, did a martial arts movie called Jim Cotta. And it turns out to be the brothers' favorite movie. And it's just hilarious because as a kid, Jim Cotta was one of my favorite movies. I didn't think anyone else knew about it, but it's a hilarious scene in the movie that comes in the it's the actual episode is titled Jim Cotta. So check out that episode. It's pretty funny how they incorporate that bad 80s martial arts movie into it and make it funny. So go ahead, Pat. I just had to.
No, that was a good side road. That was a good side road. Now I was just like, it just there was nothing in it that made me feel like I needed to watch. How many episodes was it? 8 or 10?
8, I think. 8.
Okay,
8.
There's nothing that made me feel like I need to spend a full work day watching it. I mean, I watched like a couple hours of it, and I'm like, okay, I got the feel. I mean, it's like you got the fish out of water. I mean, this seems to be the thing they're doing this year anymore. They're trying to put the super competent individual with the fish out of water, and it's just and hilarity ensues. It feels like
that's why you got to look at it because it's a little more than that.
Well, I didn't have 8 hours to just watch stuff because I got a 2-hour drive, as we know, because we had these off-camera talks. Series when I have three things to watch, it gets a little bit rough. Anyway, moving on. It was the parts that I watched with a grain of salt. I did not see the entire thing as Pam has. It was okay. It wasn't I didn't feel terrible, but it was not something I would have sought out to watch. So
don't listen to him.
There you go.
It's fun. Definitely check it out. You don't have to binge it all at once. Like somebody here always wants
you
to
have
do.
to if you've only got a week to
You
watch
have-
it.
It's fun to watch the intrigue of it as well. So it's a split review, but listen to me. And check out the Gymkhana episode. It's hilarious. When you see it. Up next is something not hilarious. It's our Black History Month selection. This time it is a psychological thriller called The Mill with Little Will Howery. Let's take a peek.
Hello, Joe. Let's discuss your new job.
What job? I got a wife, and she's pregnant. Please let me go.
At Mallard, your work consists of pushing the mill. The employee with the fewest points will be terminated.
When do I go home?
You still don't believe the rules apply to you. Perhaps you would respond to other incentives.
Oh, shit!
You are well on your way.
What is this? Please.
You're still asking questions.
You're a crucial part of our team. For life.
Pat, what did you think of The Mill?
Well, in this episode of Saw, I felt it to be a little without the creepy clown in the background. It was not quite as good as the other Saw movies, but it felt a lot like all the Saw movies. That's what it was. It was Saw.
Well, it didn't have the horrible killing stuff like Saw.
It was all off screen, but there was horrible killing implied in every bit of it. Well, it was implied with it. Yes, it was implied. Terminated, you hear the screaming and then the silence. Yeah, that's kind of an implied killing. So there was a lot of implied killing if you didn't do your work, if you didn't do the terrible task. And it again, it felt like a tired analogy, parable of I got to push the millstone to be at work, and it just I sat through the whole thing. I watched the whole thing, and at the end they left a nice big enough opening to drive a truck through. So if they want to do sequels, they can do sequels. I mean, there's all kind of. I mean, and they probably got a pretty good deal on it. They had like 4 or 5 actors maybe you only saw on the screen, and a couple of them were only showing little video clips, to the actual actor, the participant and it had a very Squid Game, a very Saw feel to it. So it did not do anything for me other than take a couple hours of my life, and I watched it. It was not that great.
Go.
No, really.
Negative net over there.
When we start watching good movies, I'll have good reviews, but this was not great. This was not great.
I thought that it was interesting, and I thought it was a good metaphor for corporate kind of a corporate kind of takeover kind of movie. I felt though that if you're going to use somebody like Little Will Howery, and if you're going to put a black man in a corporate environment, then I need to hear some more about what it was like for this black man in this corporate environment and what he had to do and the things he had to go through to get to the high level he was, and then how he ended up in the mill. And so I felt like they did a good job in talking about the metaphor of the mill and the grindstone, and you trying to keep pushing, but the goalpost gets further away from you even as you get closer to it. There's more and more of that, and what people throw people under the bus to not sacrifice and bind together. So I thought there were some good messages in there about corporate greed and corporate treatment of workers, but I I felt like they kind of missed part of it by not talking about what it's like for Black people in corporate America, because it's a very different experience. So sometimes they just want to plop somebody in there, and then sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna need you to talk a little more about this. So I thought it was an interesting movie, and certainly I didn't feel like I wasted my time, but I felt like it was something more I was wanting from it. But I think you should check it out for yourself. This is one of those that I don't want to spoil it, but the ending is not satisfying, because I would have rather see what happened in the ending happen a little bit earlier and then see what they were going to do. So it could be that they're going to do something more. I don't know how much this movie made. I don't know if it was at the theaters or just on Hulu.
Straight to video, yeah.
Okay, so
I sound old when I say that. Sorry, straight to streaming.
Yeah, I don't think it looked that expensive, but it was effective. I felt like, even though it didn't look like it had a large budget, they used it well. So gave you a creepiness and a feel of it that was effective. So I think you should check it out. Patrick doesn't think you should, but judge it for yourself. Check it out. All right. Well, now here comes my favorite time of the year, is the best writing categories for the Academy Awards. So first up, we're going to take a look at the original screenplays. Let's put that up. And we have Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Maestro, May, December, and Past Lives. Okay, let's do what we've been doing. What was your favorite? And what was your least favorite? And what other movie do you think should have been on this list that wasn't? Let's look at can you put the list up again? Let's put the list up. And Patrick, what is your favorite of these selections?
Well, of the ones I've seen, The Holdovers.
Okay. Yeah. Why?
Well, I'm just gonna. Well, I've seen two movies out of these five.
Okay, which one have you seen?
This and Maestro. Holdovers and Maestro.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I was not super impressed with Maestro, as we've already discussed.
Yeah.
The Holdovers I thought was well done. I mean, it was, my problem is I'm looking for new things, and there's not much new under the sun, I got to tell you. And this, this had it had echoes of some other movies, but I thought there were some really interesting dynamics that they were putting in there. The rich people versus the poor people. Here that the ones who are just working here, and then the ones who are going to school there, and then there were the outcasts. There were some really interesting dynamics going on between the characters that I did like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. My favorite of that list was Past Lives. I just watched it yesterday, and I really wasn't expecting a lot, but I kept hearing that people have just loved this movie. I was like, we'll see. And man, it is a beautiful little piece of filmmaking. It's very delicate. The acting is very restrained, but full of emotion in it for its restraint, and it's just lovely. I mean, it's such a beautiful story, and it's a love story, and it's a romance, but it's not a typical type of romance. So it's just something, if you're going to watch something for Valentine's Day, Past Lives, I highly recommend for Valentine's Day. And then you kind of hug your sweetie a little bit tighter. Tell them how much you care about them. Oh, I just loved it. Definitely for me, Past Lives in there. I did watch all of the movies, and this one to me, just as you can tell, just spoke to me the most. Now, least favorite in this category, Patrick, well,
You already know what mine is, and
Maestro.
it's going to be Maestro, out of the ones I've
Yeah.
seen, because again, just to reiterate it, there was no real. I mean, the characters themselves were not spectacularly interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that. I understand that he was a musical genius, and his work,
Larger than life.
his work is incredibly important in the American songbook, as it were,
Yeah.
for that particular period. But it was not that interesting. Yeah, he was kind of. He wasn't okay. I've seen really good movies about musicians. Amadeus is one that always leaps to my mind. This was a guy whose genius spanned, centuries so far,
Yeah.
but he was larger than life, and he was interesting in his larger than lifeness.
Yeah.
Whereas Leonard Bernstein was larger than life, but he was just kind of banal. I mean, it was just, we were looking at a party. I'm like Great Gatsby without being as cool. Is what it felt like to me. It's just,
that's an interesting take on that. I like
it
that.
it just, he was just a glad hander, and he was just, I felt no empathy, no anything with him, so I just did not. It wasn't that great. I mean, the screenplay seemed fine. I'm sure it was very good, and I'm sure that Bradley Cooper is well deserving to be in that grouping.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm just like, meh.
Yeah. I just watched it today, and my least favorite is May December. It's a kind of a take. Todd Phillips is the director, and he's a difficult kind of director, writer, producer kind of dude. And I think the only thing I've liked of his was Far From Heaven, which was kind of a take on the old 50s kind of melodramas like Imitation of Life and those kind of stories. But this one is a kind of a telling of the Laterno and her Villy Falau, the young boy. She was a sexual predator and ended up marrying him and having 2 kids by him, and she was just a terrible person. And this movie kind of, it's trying to be a camp satirical kind of thing, I think. But in the end, Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore are acting. One is an artist, is an actress who's coming to play the actual person, and it's taking place like 25 years later after the scandal. And then she gets there and kind of wrecks their constructed lives. But it's just like, I just don't like his stuff, and I just did not see why this made it onto the list. When there was another movie that was more fully deserving of it. I'm like, yeah, this was not. It was not great. So, check it out if you want, but it's just kind of, ugh. That's my take on May December. Ugh. But what is one that you wish had made this list but didn't?
Let me run through my list real quick here. You go ahead and talk about what you want to talk about for a second.
Okay. The one, of course, I've been talking about it all season that's not on here. I would scratch out May December and I would put on Saltburn. Of course, Saltburn had me all the way through trying to figure it out. And just the kind of interesting look at class and the horror of it. It was just so fantastic. And that one by far was much better than either May, December, or Anatomy of a Fall. I just did not care for that one as well. And I felt if Saltburn was on there, man, it would have been a battle on that. That would have been really interesting to see. Pat, you got it?
Well, I'm looking through what I've seen, and Saltburn is definitely up there. Even though I felt like it was a reboot of Town of Mr. Ripley, but with much more interesting characters.
Yeah.
So that gives it a little bit of a push for me.
Yeah.
Again, my major complaint is it's not new and original. So, I mean, it was put in a different way, and they did some really interesting stuff within the acting. Was way better than Matt Damon could have done. But so I did. So yeah, sure, I could put that up there. Yeah, that was something I would like to have seen. I thought it was good. It was well done, but it was just redo. But it was just wow, so over the top on so many things. So yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at the adapted screenplay. Now, this is a monster category to me. This has got so many good things. American Fiction, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, The Zone of Interest. Okay, now I have seen all of these now. I went with David yesterday. We saw The Zone of Interest. So I literally have seen everything. And what stands out to me is American Fiction. I thought American Fiction was so interesting in what it had to say. I also read the book, and I'm going to do a separate book and movie adaptation review. So stay tuned for that. But it's just so much in there to talk about. Pat, what was your favorite on this list?
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. And American Fiction was just amazing on several levels. I thought it was, yes, I really did like that a lot. I mean, it was clever. It was smart. The way they approached things was socially aware, but not overly preachy, I guess would be the way I would put it, which is a great way to get a good message across to people that are, maybe a little resistant to, truth. So, I mean,
that's a good way.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, it was well done. It was the storyline itself was awesome. And it was just, well done.
Questions it brings up too.
Yes, I mean, because it was,
commerce versus art, and
commerce versus art,
pandering versus,
speaking of truth or whatever,
or are you being smart? It's a lot in there. So yeah, American Fiction. Oh, look at us agreeing. Oh my God. Actually, we have to say we both saw it this week, and then I called him and I said, we gotta talk about it.
No, and we both agreed that there was some real, I mean, the points that it made I thought were just wonderful, and they were well done without being abrasive to people that might have been critical about, either from both sides or all sides on this. I mean, there was wonderful. It was just, and it was well done. It was humorous. The acting really sold that stuff to me. I like both of the actors that are up for awards out of that a lot.
Yeah.
So it was really well done.
Yeah, and we'll have a deeper dive into it when we review it in a couple weeks. But yeah, now the least favorite on that category. Can you put it up for us again, babe? Mr. Producer, I guess I shouldn't say babe.
Sure, sweetheart.
All right. Pat, what was your least favorite on this?
Of those,
most of them.
I haven't seen Zone of Interest. I've seen all of the four ones. God, I gotta tell you, Barbie was probably it. I mean, Oppenheimer was amazing. Poor Things is like one of my favorite movies this year. I gotta tell you, I loved it a lot. And but Barbie is just it was. And it was supposed to be a cotton candy to a certain extent, with some nuggets of truth buried into the caramel. It was just it was great, and it got snubbed in other things, if you ask me. But but
That's
it
your
was
least favorite, or that's
yeah,
one
that's the least favorite out of
Barbie?
those. I
Okay.
thought to be really honest, because Oppenheimer was really well done. Poor Things, like I said, totally one of my favorite movies this year. It was just delightful. And I haven't seen Zone of Interest, but American Fiction was definitely the best out of all 'em. But Barbie is probably the weakest in that category for me. But that's just because I thought the story was a little cotton candy-ish. Like I said, there were a few things in there they were trying to nostalgize, I guess. Where they were really playing the nostalgia harp there a lot. So just the idea that there's a Barbie world. I mean, there was delightfully. Hey, I'm a Jayhawk too, so I recognize that music. So it was good, but it was not as good as the other ones. If there was one that I wanted to fall out of there, that would probably be what it would be right there.
Okay, so here comes the disagreement. Poor Things.
Wrong.
No,
You're just wrong.
absolutely not. As
Yeah,
the
you are.
adaptation, no. Killers of the Flower Moon is one that I felt should have been on
Well,
this.
that's my one I want to
But
go in there, but out of that
but
grouping, yeah.
Poor Things, I felt like the message that it gives for young women is terrible. Is that you have to find yourself through sexual deviancy? I don't think so. I don't like this at all. It is not something that I would recommend, and I just thought that as an adaptation, I'm actually reading the book now, but it actually changes the book quite a bit. But other than that, I just don't like this director and the way that he presents women. We'll talk about it more fully, but as far as this category, heck no. I would much have rather have seen which is my pick for what should have been on there, Killers of the Flower Moon, much more than this, because I think it's an antithesis of Barbie. Barbie's about female empowerment to me the right way, and this is some dude's perverted view of what female empowerment should look at. So I ain't with it at all. But different strokes for different folks. But Killers of the Flower Moon, I definitely think that this was an adaptation that should have been on this list, and that was a big old slap in the face to that movie. If you're going to give it Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Actress, but who wrote the words for them to speak, and who wrote the lines for him to direct? That's crazy to me. So yeah, I think Killers of the Flower Moon should have been on this list.
Well, I agree too. It's one of the books I read, but I also understand a little bit why maybe it was not, because it wasn't a very good direct adaptation. There was a lot of stuff and I understand, because movies cannot do what books. I mean, so and it was a nonfiction book. They turned into this dramatic movie, and it was a very dramatic movie, but it was all based on real, which the book was much more of a crime, like a true crime type of novel. So that's the one I thought things should have been on there, to be honest.
What? Two things of agreement?
And I Oppenheimer was amazing too. So I mean, and I really like Poor Things. Pam's wrong, but
this dude's wrong. But it's just but I think it's a monster category. I could see any one of them winning. And so that's one I'm super excited for. Well, we have talked your ears off, I'm sure. But next week, let's take a look at the movies which will be the really great show from history on a little known unit in World War I called the Harlem Hellfighters. And of course, multiple Oscar nominee Oppenheimer we're going to review. And if we have time or the inclination, maybe Elemental. And that's good. What we're going to continue to review our Oscar nominees and Black History Month selections. So come on back next week. Pat, say good night to the people.
Good night to the people. We'll see you next week.
That's it? That's all you got to say?
No, we didn't talk
Really?
yours off. You were right. You were all about that. Oh well.
Really?
I don't need to. Am I going to win anything? I live in Kansas City ish. The region. So I'm ready to see the Chiefs win tomorrow. I'm hoping Mahomes makes it his. Gonna go after.
You're a fair weather fan anyway. I remember what you said before last week. So I am a fan. So Chiefs, Super Bowl champs. That's what I'm gonna predict. And I'll be there in my red and gold to watch the game, asking 50,000 questions and irritating everybody. So we'll see you next week. Take care.